When you think about the Founding Fathers, you probably picture these legendary heroes, right? Washington, Jefferson, Hamilton, the icons of the American Revolution. But what if I told you there was another one, a really key player, who was so hated that people made a national sport out of setting him on fire? So what's the deal? Why did everyone love to hate this one guy? Let's dig in. Okay, so look at this, an effigy of a founding father literally being burned by an angry mob. And you might think, wow, that must have been a one-time thing. Nope, not even close. This was basically a regular Tuesday night in the 1790s, happening all across the brand new United States. And all of it was aimed at one man, John Jay.
I mean, this was long before Twitter, right? People couldn't just fire off a hateful tweet. They had to get creative. And boy, did they get creative. It's kind of impressive, actually, how they all managed to agree on one thing. They despised John Jay.
And we're not talking about just a few isolated incidents. We're talking more than 70 effigies burned. 70! This wasn't just a couple of angry people in one town. This was a sustained cross-country tour of pure, unfiltered rage. Seriously, that's not just outrage. That's practically a national tour, a We Hate John Jay festival. When your haters are that organized, you really gotta wonder what on earth you did. Or maybe what you didn't do. So you have to ask, what could a man possibly do to deserve this level of vitriol? I mean, did he sell secrets to the enemy? Rob the national bank? The answer is, well, it's a lot more complicated. And honestly, it's kind of sad. All right, let's start unpacking this. The first piece of the puzzle really is his personality. He was, to put it mildly, the absolute wrong guy in the wrong place at the absolute wrong time. A total mismatch for a revolution. Think about it. A revolution needs revolutionaries, firebrands, radicals, people willing to break the rules. John Jay, he was the complete opposite. Cautious, by the book, super moralistic. He was basically the guy who'd show up to a riot and ask if everyone had filled out the proper permits. And this contrast is just perfect. The revolution wanted explosions and passion, right? Fireworks. Jay delivered legal process. While guys like Thomas Paine were throwing verbal Molotov cocktails, Jay was writing essays with titles like Concerns on Excessive Treason. You can just feel the excitement, can't you? But, it wasn't just his personality. The universe itself seemed to have it out for him. The guy was plagued by just the worst luck. It felt like every time he was about to do something great, fate would just swoop in and pull the rug out from under him. A perfect example? The Federalist Papers. I mean, this is one of the cornerstones of American political thought. You had Alexander Hamilton, just an absolute machine, turning out 51 essays. Then there's James Madison, no slouch himself, writing 29. These guys were on fire. So what about the third guy, the other co-author, John Jay? How many did he contribute to this legendary project? 5, just 5. It's almost a rounding error compared to the other two. You just gotta ask, what on earth happened? Did he just get bored and quit? Nope, he got sick. He had debilitating migraines. Seriously, that's the story of his life in a nutshell. Shows up, has all this potential, and then his body betrays him. While Hamilton and Madison were literally writing the country into existence, poor John Jay was probably just lying in a dark room hoping his head would stop exploding. History doesn't really give you credit for trying, does it? Okay, so he was a bit of a downer and had bad luck. But all of that, it's just the appetizer. The main course, the one single event that sealed his fate as America's most hated man, was something called the Jay Treaty. This is where a little bit of dislike turned into a full-blown national firestorm. And this really shows you the disconnect, right? On one side, you have the actual guy, John Jay, a careful, deliberate statesman. And on the other, you have what the public made him into, this symbol of treason, a literal puppet to be set on fire. And you know what? You almost have to admire the creativity of the anger. The protests against this treaty weren't just a bunch of people yelling. Oh no, they were elaborate, theatrical productions. People put real effort into their hatred. I mean, just take a look at how they did it in Philadelphia. This was a whole process. First, you put his effigy in this fancy gilded carriage, to mock him. Then you hang it in public. But that's not enough. You gotta behead it, just for good measure. And only then, after all that pomp and circumstance, do you get to set it on fire. That's not just anger, that's dedication.
Of course, if you weren't into all that pageantry, you can always go with the simpler approach. Graffiti. Just, damn, John Jay. Short, sweet, gets the message across. Newspapers were even running articles basically saying he should be killed. It was intense. So, the whole nation is calling for your head. What do? Do you fight back, write passionate defenses of your actions? Not John Jay. His response? Pretty much silence. He just took it. He soaked up all that hatred and said almost nothing, becoming, you could argue, the most depressed founding father.
So all of this brings us back to the big question about his legacy. How are we supposed to think about John Jay? Was he this noble, misunderstood statesman, or was he just history's ultimate punching bag? When you look at his career, it's just one contradiction after another. He's a co-author of the Federalist Papers, but barely contributes. He actually wins the popular vote for governor of New York and then loses on a technicality. He tries to stop a war with Britain and gets branded a traitor for it. I mean, the poor guy just could not catch a break.
And here's the thing. If you look at it objectively, John Jay was a good guy. He was competent, he was moral, he was totally dedicated to the new republic. But he was a man of caution in an era that demanded fire. He brought process to a moment that wanted passion. And in that time, that was seen as a crime.
So that leaves us with this really interesting question, right? Was John Jay a noble statesman just crushed by the chaos of his time? Or was he, quite simply, the unluckiest man in American history? I mean, seriously, look at this guy's resume. It is stacked. Founding father? Check. Key diplomat who helped end the Revolutionary War? Check. He even co-wrote the Federalist Papers. And oh yeah, he was the very first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. On paper, this guy should be a total rock star. And yet, he's basically a trivia question. So what gives? Why is John Jay history's forgotten founder? Well, to figure that out, we've got to dig into his actual record. And let me tell you, it gets complicated, it gets uncomfortable, and it's just really, really human. And that's where we have to start. The first major problem with Jay's whole legacy is his uncomfortable record. It's just full of these contradictions that are pretty tough for us to square today, especially when it comes to the issue of slavery. So on the one hand, you have the good Jay. For his time, you could definitely call him progressive on this. He helped start the New York Manumission Society to help free enslaved people, and he was actively pushing for abolition in New York. This is the version of Jay that you read about in the flattering biographies. But, it's only half the story. Because then you have the bad. This is the same guy who bought and sold human beings after he'd already called slavery an evil. He jailed people who ran away trying to get their own freedom. And get this, he even put off freeing the people he himself enslaved because he said of financial reasons. So he knew it was wrong. He just didn't think the rules applied to his own bank account. As one historian put it so perfectly, that's not a contradiction, that's a choice. He made a conscious decision to value his own convenience and his money over the actual lives and freedom of other people. And that is a really tough stain to get out of your legacy. And this whole freedom for me but not for thee thing wasn't just about slavery. Jay was also a religious absolutist. He genuinely believed that only Christians should hold public office, and he fought to keep Catholics out. It's basically the 18th century version of saying, yeah, I support freedom, but not, like that. He wanted liberty, but it had to be his very specific, very controlled version of it. And people at the time noticed. This was not some universally loved statesman. We see this calm portrait of him now, but back then, a lot of people couldn't stand him. They literally burned him in effigy in the streets because of his unpopular stances and a treaty he negotiated. And that unpopularity followed him right into what should have been the biggest job of his life. First, Chief Justice. You would think that role would guarantee you a spot in the history books, right? But in Jay's day, it was the job nobody wanted. He was basically the Chief Justice of nothing. How much nothing are we talking about? This much. 4. That's it. That's the total number of cases the Supreme Court decided during his entire 6-year term. The court didn't have its own building, it had zero respect, and it had almost no work. It was, by far, the weakest, least important part of the new government. It was so lame that Jay just quit. He quit the Supreme Court. That makes him pretty much the only founding father to look at a huge American institution he helped create and just say, nah, I'm good, pass.
That tells you everything you need to know about what people thought of the court back then. So his legacy is a mess, and his biggest job was a total bust. But the story actually gets even sadder from there. His final decades were just this slow, painful, physical collapse that basically erased him from public life way before he actually died. His last years were just this timeline of misery. He had a massive stroke that left him partially paralyzed and in constant pain. Then his beloved wife died, which left him completely heartbroken. All of these tragedies just piled up, and he retreated from the world entirely. History kind of forgot about him while he was still alive. So, we've got the uncomfortable record, the failed job, the tragic ending, but there is one last reason John Jay is a footnote. And honestly, it might be the biggest one of all. It was his personality. Or, maybe more accurately, his lack of one. Just think about the other founders for a second. Hamilton had his duels, his drama, his flair. Jefferson had his scandals and his soaring, poetic speeches. They were these huge, larger-than-life characters who were busy building their own myths. Jay, he didn't do any of that. He didn't duel anyone, he didn't have big, juicy scandals. He just did the work, quietly and competently.
Honestly, this modern analogy just nails it. If the Founding Fathers were the Avengers, Jay is the guy managing logistics while New York explodes. He's the one making sure the supplies get there on time, he's filling out the paperwork, he's handling all the boring but absolutely essential details. Is it necessary? Totally. Is it celebrated? Not a chance.
At the end of the day, Jay's whole career can be boiled down to this one idea. He operated at the wrong emotional volume for a country that was, and let's be real, still is addicted to drama. He was competent when the nation wanted charisma. He was quiet when the nation wanted fireworks.
And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Jay's story proves that history has this huge bias for the dramatic, for the loud, for the controversial. It remembers the heroes and the villains, but it totally forgets the managers. So the real question is, what are we missing when we forget the administrators? Who are the John Jays of today? The people doing the essential, unglamorous work that holds everything together, who will probably never even know to thank. A country addicted to drama doesn't celebrate the person who prevents disasters. It villainizes them. We throw parades for the general who wins the spectacular war. We don't even notice the diplomat whose thankless work stopped that war from ever starting. When everyone's craving high drama, quiet competence can look a lot like weakness, or even worse, betrayal. The brilliant analysis we're talking about today comes from a YouTube channel called Dry Wit Dossier. And they're part of this whole wave of creators who are digging into these forgotten, sometimes uncomfortable corners of history and showing them in a completely new light. And this channel is a perfect example of what you could call the rise of the new historian online. We're talking about witty, super sharp, analytical storytelling that isn't afraid to challenge the old, traditional narratives. They're all about focusing on these overlooked figures. And what's really interesting, and I think really important, is that so many of these powerful new voices are women who are bringing a totally fresh perspective to a history that has, for so long, been written by and about men. They're finding the amazing stories that were always there, just hidden in the margin. So what this all leads to is a complete redefining of what a hero even is. It's the administrator's revenge, if you will. We're finally starting to move away from only celebrating the flashy guy on the battlefield and starting to appreciate the people who made those victories even possible in the first place. And I just love this final quote from the source because it just nails it. History isn't made by heroes. It's made by stressed administrators. I mean, come on, that's so true, right? It's powerful because it's probably way more realistic. History isn't just about grand, heroic gestures. It's about the endless, stressful, thankless work of the people in the background just trying to keep everything from completely falling apart. So in the end, this whole story about John Jay, it's not really just about the 18th century, is it? It really makes you look around today and ask, who are the uncelebrated logistics guys that we're overlooking right now? You know, the competent, quiet people who are managing the systems, preventing disasters, and doing all the essential work while the rest of us are glued to the latest drama? Definitely something to think about.